Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed for a video that Steve is forcing me to make. He decided to send me to CES specifically to touch every single GPU, to hold them, to caress them, to see the features. He was like, you've got to make that video. You can't just talk about the keynote and the NVIDIA features. He's like, you have to look at every single GPU model. So we're going to start off here at Gigabyte, and we're going to move to Asus and MSI later, see their models as well. But yeah, the plan is to touch every single model. I don't know why Steve wants this content. Maybe he's got some weird sort of thing going on where he must see every GPU. I mean, he tests so many GPUs. There must be something going on in his mind as to why he wants to test all these models. But anyway, I've been tasked with doing it. So let's get going.
The Hardware Unboxed CES coverage is brought to you by Gigabyte and their new range of X870 and Z890 motherboards, powering the latest AMD and Intel processors. Gigabyte Z890 range supports Intel's new Core Ultra processors, while the X870 range supports AMD's Ryzen 9000 series, including the gaming flagship Ryzen 7 9800X 3D. All models offer robust power delivery with optimal cooling, screwless M.2 storage, and AI-powered overclocking software to ensure you get the most out of your CPU. The stacked I/O offers various connectivity options, including Wi-Fi 7, up to 10 gigabit LAN, Thunderbolt 4, and plenty of USB ports. Now, a new feature of the AI top models is the included utility that allows you to train your own AI models at home or for small/large scale businesses. Gigabyte's X870 and Z890 motherboards are available right now from your favorite online retailers, so for more information, please check the links in the video description.
Well, I'm super excited about this to get my first hands-on time touching a new GeForce RTX 50 series GPU. This is the moment that we've all been waiting for. This is why Steve sent me over to CES, is to do this. There we go. I believe this is the GeForce RTX 5080 Master. So this is their highest tier model, which you can see here, stand not included. Very beastly GPU. If you see through there, look at all these fins. You can almost play that like an accordion or something. On the front, we've got these nice large fans. There's some RGB, I believe, that you'll see in there somewhere. And they've got these fins around the edges that improves cooling capacity, according to Gigabyte. You'll see the power connector buried, absolutely buried inside there with the heatsink. So yeah, might be a little difficult if you're trying to use an angled cable to come out this way. You probably have to route it always that way if that's something that you'd prefer. Nice and shiny up here. They even tell us there's a little LCD screen at the top here. So if you really want to get some stats, I don't know what they're going to show on there, but something up the top there with the LCD screen. So yeah, this is a really beastly GPU, to be honest. It's quite big. And in addition to that, oh, I've just taken the stand off, hang on. We'll deal with that later. We'll deal with that. The Gigabyte can deal with that later. This is the 9070 master version. So very similar to the 5080, but now 5090. So first time touching a 5090 GPU in the flesh. There we go. Fans. Not going to try remove it because it's very much in there. So that's cool. And then up the top here, we've also got another 5090, the extreme water force version. So if you really wanted a liquid cooled version, Gigabyte have gone with trying to sort of do a similar thing to what Asus were doing with their ROG Matrix sort of thing. So it's not quite the same sort of design, but I reckon this looks really, really cool. And if you have a look at there, you can sort of see the AORUS GeForce RTX sort of thing at the top there. And then they've got this triple fan radiator as well. So 360mm rad, probably going to make the card run nice and quiet, especially because we know now that the RTX 5090 is a 575 watt GPU. So potentially, with the fact that the 5090 uses so much power, there might be a little more interest in these super cooled, liquid cooled versions of the GPU, because even though this is a very beastly GPU that's air cooled, you know, there's always the potential of more overclocking potential, thermals, that sort of thing available when you go with the extremely, probably quite expensive water force version. And then in addition to that, you've got the water force version that's got a water block on it. So looks really cool in my opinion, but obviously you have to add that into your liquid cooling setup. So, you know, probably not for me because we'll leave liquid cooling to the experts. Then down here, another 5090, the gaming OC model. Again, probably can't remove it from there, so that's okay. We gave it a shot. So this is the obviously step down from the Master down to the gaming OC. So it should be a little more affordable, but you'll see again the really newly designed Hawk fan, which is what they call those little edges on the fan. Like I said, improves the cooling performance, they claim. I'll have to see how that goes. And definitely inside this one, you can see quite an obvious RGB LED ring. So this will be the model you want to get if you want maximum RGB, which Balin, the video editor, is behind the camera. He's nodding. He's super happy about this, so we'll put that into his system. They've also got this shroud thing at the top here, which slides back and forth. Slide it out, you get maximum RGB from this light at the top. If you're like me and you want to make sure that no lights are on, you slide that, close it off, no one can see the RGB. Can't really see it too well from this angle, from this stand, but obviously a very beefy cooler on this one as well, very heavy, that sort of thing. We'll move now to having a look at the 5080s, because Steve said you can't just look at the 5090s as much as we all want 5090s. You know, the more you buy, the more you save. Also, we need to look at the 5080s, which are, you know, quite a cut down model. So first up here, we have the RTX 5080 Windforce version. So this will be their entry-level model, or at least the MSRP model. That's at least what they tell us. The Windforce is sort of the bottom of the stack. So triple fan design. Let's take off the stand so we can get a good idea of the weight. Despite this being the entry-level model, it's still a reasonably weighty GPU. Should have enough cooling power for, I think it's 360 watts on the 5080. We'll have to double check that later. We've got some nice accordion action. Not as buried for the power connector here as we saw in some of those, the beefier models, like the gaming OC for the 5090 and the Master. So yeah, not too bad. You'll see the big GPU die at the back for the 5080. And then yeah, I mean, apart from that, it's a GPU. I mean, what more am I supposed to say really? So yeah, we'll try to put that back in the stand a little later. And then up here, we've got the Windforce. So that's what we looked at just now. They've also got this Aero OC versions. This is a small form factor design, similar to what you would see with that model, but it's white. So, I mean, if you want a white GPU, it's got these sort of silver highlights, white fans, still with the new Hawk fan design, which is cool, I guess. On the back, silver with the metal backplate, but you will see, if you have a look closely on the inside, it is still a black PCB. So if you're really wanting to make sure that every part of your system is white, still a black PCB. But if you slot it in, right, like, you're probably not going to notice too much of that PCB up the top there. But yeah, apart from that, it looks pretty good as far as white card models go. I always like the sort of more square design, so, you know, that's something there. We've also got, as we move down the product stack, all of the 5070s. So we've got the Master here, which is this is an absolute chungus of an RTX 5070. So if you really want the best cooling capacity and you don't want to go for a higher tier GPU, 5070 Master will do you just fine. Again, it's not quite as indented here as you would see for the power connector as on the Master for the higher tier models, but very thick sort of cooling design. Many heat pipes in there, nice and big. I can even see Balin if I look through it, so kind of cool, I guess. You've got some DisplayPort connectors on the front, that's a thing. You got fans, they spin, so they should work when installed into a computer. That's what we are really all about. And then on the back, you'll see the GPU design of the 5070. So the Master, that's at the top of the series. Then as we move down, I believe the next one down is the gaming OC model. The Gigabyte employees are looking at me being like, why are you taking all of these off the stand? We'll put them all back. It's fine. So yeah, the gaming OC model, again, it's got that sliding design. We get a bit of a better look at it here. So slide it up, maximum RGB, slide it down, minimum RGB. This is my configuration, Balin's configuration, and Steve loves his RGB as well. So not quite as thick on the cooler compared to the previous model. Still got the fans that spin and work. You can see an RGB ring around there as well. So maximum RGB on this model, the gaming OC, as we talked about previously. And so this model, sort of their mid-range option. If you want to get a little bit more cooling power than you'd see from the Eagle, Windforce, those sort of cards, you'd go with the gaming OC and you get those RGB benefits. Then as we move down, we've got the Eagle OC in two versions. We've got a white version and a black version, or at least grey sort of version. So the Eagle OC is quite close to Gigabyte's entry-level model. You should see these, well, at least this version, not the white version, around close to the MSRP. The white model, those typically cost a little bit more because they're more of a niche option. People want to pay for them a little bit more. Much lighter than you would see from the Master, so not as much cooling power, but still enough for a 5070. You'll see later in this video from some other brands, ones with just 2 fans. So Gigabyte have gone with 3 for the minimum on the Eagle. And yeah, I think these look pretty reasonable. I like the black one in particular because I don't usually go with the white design for my builds, but I think this looks pretty good for an Eagle model. You're still getting the metal backplate, you're still getting a power connector, because if there was no power connector, the GPU just wouldn't work at all. So it's good to see that they've included that. And PCIe connector as well on both models. So yeah, pretty nice. So black PCB again on the white model for the 5070. So Gigabyte are not showing any 5070 Ti's here, so we'll have to check out some other companies to see some 5070 Ti models, but you'll see pretty similar coolers and all that across all of their GPUs and things like that. So yeah, GeForce GPUs, first hands on time, touching a 5070, and gotta say, it feels like NVIDIA in my hands right here. So let's move on to some more stuff. So we found some Radeon GPUs around the other side, the new 9070 series, which again, AMD didn't really want to talk about, but AIBs are showing them here. So we've got 2 models, a 9070 XT and a 9070. This is actually the first 9070 we've come across so far on the showroom floor. So right here, we have stand included. Not really, you don't actually get the stand, I don't believe. So this is the 9070 XT Elite, which I believe Elite is sort of one of the more higher tier models that come with the Gigabyte series. So again, you got 3 fans, and if you look closely on the inside, you'll see there's an RGB ring around each of these fans. So those should illuminate when you're turning them on. And they've got these little, I guess they're kind of fins on the fins around the edges of the fans. They say that improves cooling across all of their new GPUs this year by about 10%. So whether that means airflow or cooling power, I'm not sure. It's marketing stuff. We'll figure that out later. Again, we're seeing the 3 power connectors. So later in this video, I think you'll see a few more of the Radeon models that have the 3 power connectors on the 9070 XT. So that's available there. And obviously this big fin stack as well. On the back, you've got the nice metal backplates. That's not too bad. It says AMD Radeon on the back. And yeah, you got the ports on the front. Obviously, those are yet to be fully specified because AMD hasn't talked about this GPU. So unfortunately, we don't have any additional specs or anything to talk about there. Over here, we have got right here the Radeon RX 9070. So this is the gaming OC model. So again, it's sort of a mid-range sort of GPU from Gigabyte. You see a plastic shroud, fans that spin, so that's good. That's good. Inside, they've also got some sort of version of their fin technology that improves cooling, but no RGB that I can see on this particular model. So unfortunately for your RGB fans, you're kind of getting screwed there. But on the back, we've got this nice metal backplate that actually looks really good, and it's tapered at the corner here. And on the 9070, you'll see that there's just 2 of the 6-pin or 2 of the 8-pin PCI power connectors. So that maybe tells you about the sort of power differences between the 2 models. They've also got this slider thing that they told us, which you might have seen earlier from some of the NVIDIA models. Show RGB, hide RGB. So I think I would glue this down so that you can never open and see the RGB. So yeah, 9070 feels, not too bad. It's not the heaviest card going around, but it's okay. And yeah. So this is Asus's new flagship air-cooled design that they're using for the GeForce 50 series. It's the ROG Astral, which I think looks really nice, really sleek with its sort of metal housing around the outside. More fans, which are kind of cool, and look at this absolutely beefy heatsink that you see in the middle here. The interesting thing about the Astral is that this isn't a 3-fan design. Flip it around the back, there's a 4th fan. So you got this sort of push-pull design between these 2 fans on this side, and they even have a slightly more dense fin stack so that, optimizes the cooling or something like that. Asus tell us as well that the higher up in their stack you go, the more sensors will be available for monitoring power and that sort of thing, hardware info. I believe they also say there's some phase change GPU thermal pads inside all of these particular models. This is an RTX 5080, this version, and it is extremely heavy, so I'm going to probably need to go and get a massage after holding that one. Next up, down the stack, I believe this is the ROG Strix 5070 Ti model. So a little lower end than you'd see from the Astral, but still quite a high-end model. This is a lot lighter than the previous card because the power consumption is a little lower. No second fan on the back, so just the airflow straight through. You'll see some fins, whatever, fans, cool. You got the sort of plasticky shroud. Don't know what to make of the design. It's okay, I guess. Next up, the tough version, I believe. Let's have a close look. This is a 5090. So the first 5090 that we're holding here from Asus. Tough design, so more towards the mid-range / entry level. You've got this nice sort of shroud design going on, like you've seen from tough cards before. You've got the power connector, so hopefully no more melting this year. Nice beefy cooler. This actually, despite being a 5090, is lighter than the 5080 Astral. So that kind of shows you that the higher up you go, it doesn't really matter whether you're getting 5090 or 5080. The Astral is going to be the beefiest, biggest cooler. But still pretty beefy, pretty heavy. You can see on the back here how big that GPU area is going to be for the 5090. Look at all those surface mount components that we've got there. Obviously at the front, ports, so cool, I guess. And then down the bottom, this is a 5070 from their Prime series. Now Prime isn't new to the 50 series, but they're bringing it back for the more entry-level models. Triple fan design, all the fans spin, so that's a good sign. We've got more cooling and fins and heat pipes and all that sort of thing. And on the back, compared to the 5090, smaller GPU design. And then obviously the DisplayPort 2.1 connectors. So I actually quite like the Prime design. I think I actually like it a little bit better than the ROG Strix version. I just think the more matte design on the plastic for the Prime is probably more something that I would appreciate, despite the fact that the Strix 5070 Ti is a higher tier model. So we'll see how that goes, but yeah, quite a nice looking GPU if I'm honest. So here we've got the highest end model that we're looking at from Asus today, which I'm wearing is sort of this scarf accessory, which I guess if you're a rich person, you can just buy one like this, walk it out onto the town, because this will be extremely expensive. Obviously, this is a liquid cooled version of the Astral air cooled model that we had a look at earlier. I've been told that I have to hold this. I can't just let it go because it might break. So yeah, you got your triple fan radiator on this side. You got your actual 5090 or 5080 GPU on this side. It's a really nice finish, to be honest. So on the back, you'll see that big GPU die again. And yeah, this gives you enough tubing, as you can see around the back of my head, to install this card wherever you want and put the radiator as well wherever you want. And to be honest, quite a comfortable sort of design here. The shrouding on that, the tubing around the back of my head feels quite comfy, feels quite nice. So again, if you're sort of that premium customer, want to bling out a little bit, it's an option. So we're here at MSI to take a look at their new GeForce 50 series GPUs. This is all for Steve because he wanted to see every single model. So here we go. We have got the flagship version. This is a hefty GPU. Probably going to struggle to hold this in one hand, the Supreme OC model. This is a serious beast of a GPU. Of course, the cooler's been designed really thick so that it will cool the 575 watt GPU. Metal backplate. I'm guessing this looks pretty similar to the previous Supreme versions with the sort of brushed metal design. It's designed to be, pretty hefty. This is a high-end model. You are kidding yourself if you're getting this for $2,000 US. There is absolutely no way that they will sell you one for that much. But if you want the best of the best, OC capabilities, power delivery, cooling, heat sinks, heat pipes, fans, display connectors. I mean, the display connectors are the same on all the cards, but they've got all of them. Anyway, so we've got this one. And now the next model down is the Vanguard OC. So this is a new series for MSI this year. They've decided to make a card that's in between the Supreme and the Gaming Trio that we'll have a look at in a moment. It's got these sort of carbon fiber highlights there. Maybe we'll use this as a pointer. So carbon fiber highlights down the bottom there, fan shroud. They're telling us as well that this one, has more RGB than the Supreme. So not sure how that's going to play out, but basically MSI said people want more RGB. So they put more RGB into this one. They both feel roughly the same weight. So MSI were telling me that these two cards have a very similar cooling design, which makes sense because they're both hefty. In fact, I could probably, get fit from, doing some reps on these. But anyway, they're slightly different. The Supreme is an 11 heat pipe design. The Vanguard is a 10 heat pipe design. So there's a small difference between these models. So if you go for the slightly lower tier Vanguard, again, one less heat pipe, probably won't make too much difference to the cooling capacity because, as you can see, the rest of the fin stack and the copper base plate or the aluminium base plate, not sure which one it is, that goes onto the GPU die area in memory appears to be the same. So yeah, most of the design differences are the things that you're going to be buying the Vanguard or the Supreme for. The Vanguard with, you know, those sort of fake carbon fiber sort of highlights, more the metal design on the Supreme. So we've got these two models. And then as we go further down, we move to the Gaming Trio OC. So this feels a little lighter than the cards that we're looking at so far, a little cheaper in its design. Still obviously a very expensive model that's designed for high-end shoppers, but you know, more plastic on the front shroud. The back plate feels still metal, so still reasonably hefty. And I think the cooling capabilities of this are quite similar to the Vanguard model. So you'll be able to get this for probably a little over the MSRP of the card. And as we go further down in my little collection that I'm building here, we have got the Ventus OC model. So hopefully I don't drop all these other cards, but basically this is your classic Ventus OC card. So hopefully MSI will be selling this for the $2,000 MSRP, plastic shroud on the front. It still feels pretty metal on the back to me, reduced cooling capacity. You know, it's meant to be an entry-level GPU that you'll be able to get for $2,000. It sounds ridiculous to say an entry-level card is $2,000, but here we are, entry-level model for $2,000. So let's now go have a look at the Supreme Liquid OC model. So as we're down here, they've made a liquid model as well. So if you want liquid cooling, that's available. I'm not going to try fully pick this one up because I'm currently carrying about 10 kilos of RTX 5090 GPUs. But basically, yeah, liquid OC model. You've probably seen this from MSI before. Triple fan on the radiator. You're going to have to put the radiator somewhere. They've made a few improvements to the cooling design. We'll sort of show some B-roll of that. But I mean, that card is going to be just unbelievably expensive. You might even be able to buy all 4 of these 5090s that I'm holding right now for the same price as the liquid OC model. So anyway, yeah, lots of 5090s here. So we've got some interesting things with the 5080 series this year. MSI has made a Supreme version of the 5080, a liquid OC. Usually this would have been their flagship sort of 4090 type product. But with the 5080 series this year, they're also giving people a Supreme liquid OC version if you really want that. Hopefully I'm not destroying their setup too much here. Also available for people, this is a really heavy graphics card actually, the RTX 5080 Supreme OC, the Air version. So a bit longer design, still very hefty to cool the 570, well it's not 575 watt for this one, it's 360 watts I believe. Single power connector on this one, your DisplayPort connectors and all that sort of thing. Yeah, pretty hefty, nice metal design. Again, you've probably seen a Supreme GPU before. The Vanguard, again, this is their new series for this generation, sort of that mid-range sort of price. You've got some carbon fiber highlights. You've got the fins, makes a nice sort of sound there. PCIe connector, looks pretty nice. I mean, I don't know, like compared to the Supreme OC model, not sure what people would prefer there. I think I probably prefer the Vanguard design a little more. Depends on the RGB, of course. None of these are plugged in, so maybe RGB will change the situation. But MSI told us this model has more RGB, so not sure about that. We've got the Gaming OC Trio here, and they've made 2 versions of this. So hopefully Bane's getting some good shots of these. We've got the black version and the white version. White version looks very nice for all your white builds. The PCB is still black though, so sometimes with the white models, they also do white PCB. Not with this one. Still looks good though, if you want that sort of design. Black model, obviously sort of mid-range, got this nice shiny thing on the back. Then we start getting to the more entry-level 5080 models. We've got the Ventus 3X OC model. So this will be the entry-level 5080. Very compact, much smaller, much lighter than the larger models, but yeah, we're still only talking about 360 odd watts, so should be quite doable. And then the product that interests me the most from these series is the 5080 Inspire model. So MSI tells us that this is a slightly higher tier version of the Ventus, except it's got more metal highlights around it. So the Ventus, for example, you're getting the metal backplate on the card, whereas the fan shroud on the front is made of plastic. Whereas with the new Inspire model, you're getting this really nice design, in my opinion, with the metal on the front, metal on the back as well, and it's sort of gold-ish. Like, it's not a strong gold color, but it's looks quite nice in my opinion. So this is a potential option for people that want a 5080. They want to spend a little more than the Ventus for something that looks a little nicer, but they don't want to go to the big Chungus models of the Vanguard and the Supreme. Let's take a look at some 5070 Ti's. So if you saw the 5080s, you've probably also seen the 5070 Ti's because, let's be honest, very similar sort of designs. So here we have the Vanguard. Again, this is their beastly top tier model. So top of the 5070 Ti is this model, no Supreme for this series. We've also got here Gaming Trio OC Plus model. So this has got the shiny sort of MSI logo on the back, nice metal backplate, and you see some RGB sort of areas at the top there. Then we have the Gaming Trio OC White model, so very similar to what we saw with the 5080. And then again, they've got a very similar situation with the two 5070 Ti lower tier models, the Ventus with the plastic shroud on the front for the fans, the Inspire with the more gold metallic design on both sides. This is again probably the model that I'd be considering. Nice, lightweight, compact. It fits into NVIDIA's SFF design with the enthusiast cards. So looks quite nice, seems reasonably well built. So 5070 time now from MSI. First up, the flagship model is the Vanguard once again. So very similar to what you've seen previously. This is a very hefty GPU, quite heavy with its significant amount of heat pipes, its metal backplate. It's still plastic on the front, but I reckon it looks pretty good. And they say there's some enhanced RGB stuff going on there. As we get further down, again, we've got the Gaming X Trio and the Gaming Trio OC and the Gaming Trio OC White models. So again, the white model has a black PCB if you care about that, but it's kind of hidden by the shroud, so not too bad. So further down here, we have an interesting thing that we haven't seen with the other models, which is two types of Ventus cards that you can get. So there's the 2-fan model and the 3-fan model. The 3-fan model is obviously a bit longer to, for the difference. It's also, as far as I can tell, the 3-fan model gets you a bit of a thicker heatsink, so it's not just longer, but it's a little thicker as well. The 2-fan model is probably going to be for small form factor designs. I think they're both SFF ready, NVIDIA's SFF program, but if you really need the space, you probably go with this one. Otherwise, probably the 3-fan version. And also, you'll see a white version of the 2X as well. So these are all available if you want some sort of entry-level model from MSI. And then my personal favorite, once again, the Inspire 3X OCs. This has got the metal shroud on the front, metal on the back again. Very similar sort of cooling setup to the Ventus. So if I look sort of on the inside of the fans, it looks pretty similar in that heatsink area. It's kind of hard to tell without taking the card apart, but looks like you'll be getting very sort of similar cooling power. What I found interesting from MSI, just having a chat with them here at the show, is that they were a little surprised how low the pricing was for the 5070 and the 5070 Ti. MSI did not get that information until you would have seen the show today or yesterday when NVIDIA announced all the pricing information. So they were expecting the 5070 to be a little more expensive, and that's probably why you would have seen like Vanguard designs, that sort of thing. But still, even though they anticipated the price being higher, they're still producing the entry-level models for people and quite a range of entry-level models. So yeah, I thought that was sort of some interesting insights from MSI here. But yeah, nice large selection of cards. All right. That does it. I've teleported back to Gigabyte to wrap up this video. I believe we have tested, well, not tested. I've tested it with my hands, which isn't really testing. I've held something like 30 to 40 new GPUs across both the GeForce and Radeon stuff. So again, I hope this has satisfied Steve's weird craving for GPU content on the channel. He will now have everything that he needs to look at all the new GPU models. So that's it, I guess, from our CES content for graphics cards. Check the NVIDIA video that we did for all the details on the GPUs if you want to see their performance claims, specs, that sort of thing. NVIDIA video. AMD is not talking as much about the 9070 XT, but we've got a few things. You can check that video as well. What else is there to say, really? It's probably a long video because, again, we've touched like so many GPUs in this one. Yeah, thanks for watching to the end. If you want to support Hardware Unboxed, we've got our Patreon page, links to the description below. Thank you to Gigabyte for bringing us out to CES 2025 and allowing us to take like a ton of models off stands. It was all nicely set up. We completely ruined their setup. Yeah, that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.